Well, we're a few minutes late here, but I think it's a good sign that commissioners like to talk amongst themselves here. So I hate to interrupt that with our business meeting, but hey, here we go. So I just want to take this time to call the business meeting for the Kalamazoo City Commission to order for Monday, August 21st, 2023. And the first order of business is our good clerk Borling calling the roll.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hess.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Juarez. Here. Commissioner Pradel.
Present.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Borling. For our opening ceremony tonight, we have an invocation that will be provided by Father Bryce Buffenbarger. Hope I'm close enough. From the Annunciation Greek Orthodox Church. It's an honor to have you here with us. So I just want to remind everyone, let's please stand for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
O Heavenly One, Comforter, Spirit of truth, who are present everywhere and filling all things, the treasury of good things and giver of life, come and dwell in us and cleanse us of every stain and save our souls, O Good One. Lord and Creator of all things, who dwells in unapproachable light and watches over the humble, wisdom was with you long before you began your creative work, and you have promised to give generously of that wisdom to all who ask. And so in boldness we approach you, the one who is ever first approaching us in your great love for humanity and for all of your creation. And we ask that you give your spirit of wisdom, as well as your spirit of peace, to all those who are gathered here for the good of our beloved city of Kalamazoo. May our eyes ever be open to behold the beauty of your work that surrounds us and your divine image that you have placed in every person. Bless us, protect us, and have compassion on us, O God, in your grace. Amen.
They've already left, but I always like to recognize and thank individuals who show up to help us kick off this meeting with an invocation. So thank you very much for that. We have a special guest with us this evening. It's a change on our agenda. Mike Fry is here. And yeah, Mr. Fry, if you want to come forward, you're going to be talking about the Veterans Millage, I believe, correct?
Yes, sir. All right. Good evening. My name is Michael Fry. I'm the chairman of the Kalamazoo County Veterans Affairs Committee. Our advisory council is comprised of 7 veterans who volunteered their time and are tasked with overseeing the Kalamazoo County Veterans Service Office, more commonly referred to as the VSO. The VSO helps connect veterans and their families with the benefits and services that they've earned through their military service. The staff accomplishes this by counseling veterans and their families and then helping them navigate the convoluted process that the VA puts in place in order to access those federal benefits. Not only does the VSO serve as the local gateway for accessing VA benefits and services, but also helps facilitate local benefits and services as well, such as providing financial relief for food, housing, utilities, transportation, dental, hearing, and vision services. Over the last 2 years, the VSO has witnessed an unprecedented demand for these direct benefits. In the past 12 months alone, more than 525 veterans have walked into the VSO for the very first time. That's 525 local veterans that swallowed their pride and asked for help for the very first time. In 2022, this demand led to the VSO exhausting its annual funding to provide these direct benefits and services within the first 5 months of the calendar year. In 2023, they ran out of funding within the first 3 months of the year. Fortunately, COVID funds provided through the American Rescue Plan Act have helped supplement the VSO's budget, which has allowed the VSO staff to continue offering these benefits and services to our local veterans and their families for the last 2 years. But those COVID funds are projected to run out by the end of this year, and they will not be renewed. COVID funds were a temporary solution, a Band-Aid, if you will, to a more permanent problem. Calls for the county government to increase annual funding and bring stability to the VSO have failed, as funding levels have remained stagnant for several years. The county government currently funds the VSO with just $304,900 through their general fund, which falls well short when compared to what other counties across the state of Michigan are doing for their veterans. Livingston County allocates more than $1 million for their veterans. Kent County, $1.3 million. Washington County, $1.7 million. And Macomb County, $2.4 million. Even Calhoun County, who is much smaller than Kalamazoo County, allocates more than $400,000 for their veterans. These counties have all approved veteran millages to improve the lives of their respective veterans and their families that live in their communities. A team of local veterans, including myself, have come together and dedicated our time and energy towards bringing long-term financial stability to our VSO through our very own Veterans Millage so that the VSO can continue its mission to serve our local veterans and their families. We formed Yes for Kalamazoo Veterans in order to help advocate for the Veterans Millage. I currently serve as the campaign co-chair and the treasurer for this initiative. We're asking for voters to approve 1/10 of a mill this November to improve the lives of veterans and their families in Kalamazoo County. The veteran millage will cost the average homeowner in Kalamazoo County less than $10 per year. That's less than $1 per month. Moreover, the money generated from the veterans millage will be protected from being diverted to other spending priorities within the county government and can only be used to help fund the Veterans Service Office as it works to improve the lives of the veterans that live in our own community. At the start of this entire process, I was told by some Republicans that the Democrats would never get on board with this campaign and that their priorities lie elsewhere. And I was also told by some Democrats that the Republicans would never get on board either because they may say that they support the military and our veterans, but they would never vote in favor of raising their taxes. But in the months that followed, I met privately with each of our county commissioners, both Democrats and Republicans, and made my case for the veterans millage. And on April 18th, I watched both sides of the aisle reconcile their differences, put aside the partisan rhetoric, and come together and do what's best for our veterans and their families by voting unanimously to place the veterans millage on the November ballot. I come before you this evening to not only share this information with you and your constituents, but to ask for your help as well. I'm asking that this political body endorse our campaign, and help push us across the finish line on November 7th. We've already received endorsements from State Representatives Christine Morse and Julie Rogers, State Senator Sean McCann, all Democrats, U.S. Congressman Bill Huizenga, a Republican, and Mayor Patricia Randall from the city of Portage, an independent. This veterans millage is a bipartisan solution for what should be a nonpartisan issue, taking care of our veterans. We will be asking the voters in Kalamazoo County to do the same. We're asking for our community to come together, progressives, moderates, and conservatives, and do what's best for our veterans and their families that choose to call Kalamazoo County their home. We're asking the voters to vote yes for vets on November 7th. We also ask that you help us by spreading the word for the next 2.5 months. You can find us on Facebook, Yes for Vets. Please like and follow our page. Share our videos and other content with your families and friends in your social circles. You can also go on our webpage and learn more about the Veterans Millage, www.yesforvets.com. And I'll close with this. An excerpt from the Marine Raider Creed reads, "Spiritus Invictus, an unconquerable spirit will be my standard. I will never quit, I will never surrender, and I will never fail." There are more than 12,000 veterans in Kalamazoo County. I ask that each of you find your own unconquerable spirit and help us fight for the men and women who had the courage to raise their right hand and serve their country, but now may be struggling to put a roof over their head or food on their table. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fry. I appreciate your honorable efforts. Thank you. And I believe that some information was provided to everybody here on the dais as well. Next on our agenda is we have a proclamation, and I believe that's going to be read by Commissioner Decker. Is that correct? All right. This is a proclamation for National Recovery Month. Is there anybody here from the Recovery Institute? All right. Let's, you can go ahead and step up, and I will come down with the proclamation. Commissioner Decker.
State of Michigan, United States of America Proclamation, National Recovery Month. Whereas, Recovery Month is a national observance held every September since 1989 to promote and support new evidence-based treatment and recovery practices, the emergence of a strong and proud recovery community, and the service providers and community members across the nation who make recovery in all its forms possible. And whereas, the focus of Recovery Month this September is to celebrate all people that make the journey of recovery possible by embracing the 2023 theme, Join the Voices for Recovery, Together We Are Stronger. And whereas, approximately 20 million individuals in the U.S. have a substance use disorder. Last year, we lost almost 109,680 individuals nationally, and nearly 3,000 in Michigan. That is 8 people a day to overdose. Fentanyl is now the #1 cause of death for Americans aged 18 to 45, surpassing suicide, COVID-19, and car accident-related death. And whereas 1 of 5 Americans will experience a mental illness in a given year, and 50% will be diagnosed with a mental illness or disorder at some point of their lifetime. And whereas the City of Kalamazoo is dedicated to making our community recovery-friendly by providing accessible, evidence-based treatment for mental health and substance use disorder to all, by prioritizing equity and inclusion and removing barriers that marginalized populations face, treating citizens with respect and dignity to achieve their pathway of recovery, offering education to lessen the stigma associated with substance use disorder and mental health, embracing harm reduction principles, and understanding that recovery is a lifelong process, and offering safe places to individuals struggling. Now, therefore, I, Kiana Decker, on behalf of the 54th Commission and on behalf of David F. Anderson, Mayor of the City of Kalamazoo, do hereby proclaim the month of September 2023 as Recovery Month in the City of Kalamazoo and call upon the community to observe this month. with compelling programs and events that support this year's observance, the 34th anniversary of Recovery Month.
Okay. Thank you to the City Commission for recognizing Recovery Month. We are so fortunate to belong to a city that acknowledges the recovery community. I'm receiving the proclamation on the behalf of the Recovery Institute of Southwest Michigan. For those that don't know the Recovery Institute, it is a peer-run recovery community organization that offers free peer support, recovery coaching, groups, and activities. Again, free of cost to any individual that comes in. We are honored to receive this proclamation tonight. We hope to see you at the 9th Annual Wellness and Recovery Festival in Bronson Park. That's on the 16th of September, 11 to 5. And thank you again.
Thank you so much for being here. All right, now we are to the adoption of our formal agenda. Commissioners, are there any items on the consent agenda, G, that would you like to have moved to the regular agenda?
Thank you, Mayor. Just want to acknowledge item H3 on the regular agenda. We're going to be pulling that from tonight's agenda. We had a couple questions come up. We really think this is a great project. A lot of progress has been made. A couple of details we want to work through and expect to be coming before you very soon.
Thank you. Hearing nothing from commissioners, this is an opportunity for anyone who's here in the chambers to request an item to be moved from G, the consent agenda, to the regular agenda. Is there anybody who would like to have an item moved? All right, seeing no one then. Next, COO Laura Lamb, Communications.
Sure. Something that Commissioner Pradel alluded to during the Committee of the Whole, tonight's theme seems to be housing and affordable housing. I wanted just to draw attention that tonight we have a number of items coming before you all, close to $3 million worth of investment between direct supports, between payment in lieu of taxes. And because housing is such a priority for this commission, it often goes unnoticed. It's perfunctory almost, the support that you all have for the projects and the work that the staff bring forward. I want to just take some time to acknowledge that what you see come before you in our last meeting, in this meeting, and the future meetings are a number of projects that have been years in the making. I want to just thank Sherilyn Parsons and the Community Planning Economic Development team for all of their work bringing projects forward to you all tonight.
Thank you, COO Lamb. I appreciate that. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Public comments can be made here in the chamber. If you'd like to make a comment, please come forward. Please state your name and whether you live in the city. And then just as a reminder, you can also call in and provide a public comment, also limited to 3 minutes. The number to call in, and I would start now, is 888-382-9556. Yes, please go ahead.
My name's Toby Hannah Davies, and I do live in the city. And I want you to know I was born the same summer as George Bush, Bill Clinton, and Donald Trump. We were all born 9 months after all the daddies got home from World War II. We are the leading edge of the baby boomers. That means there's a lot more coming after me. So I am especially grateful for the senior housing projects that you're adopting tonight, the various ways you're supporting the senior housing projects. And as an Isaac and TRHT Housing Task Force member for years, ever since 2003, I am also very grateful for every other kind of affordable housing project and I'm excited about the housing voucher rehabilitation units, the rehabilitation for people with vouchers. I'm here to thank you. As Laura Lamu said, these projects are years in the making. But tonight, just tonight, the 3 projects add up to 182 units of housing that ranges from workforce housing about 100% of median for actually a low percent of the units, down to 80%, 60%, 50%, 30%, and 20% of our area median income, all the range of affordability needed in this community. And these projects are exciting for other reasons. No green fields are destroyed in the creation of these 3 projects. And the cooperation is incredible. The complicated financing, the partnership involved in these projects is really impressive. So I just want to say all of us in Isaac Housing Work are very grateful for the Rose Street Senior Project and Mount Zion and Hollander and Edison Community Partners, a senior housing called The Legacy, and the LISC rental rehab for housing voucher holders. Those are all very exciting. The countywide millage has supported some of these, and the low-income housing tax credits through MISHTA. I've never seen the financing done before with one building in the project getting 4% and another building in the project getting 9%. There's a lot of creative, complicated financing here.
Thank you so much. Next, please.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Commissioners, my name is John Knowlton. I'm a resident of Texas Township, and I'm also the president of the Kalamazoo Bicycle Club, which, it may surprise you to know, has more than 500 dues-paying members. So 500 people who want to be a member of a bike club in Kalamazoo. I also suspect that you've been getting a lot of feedback about bike lanes and updated infrastructure projects. And my purpose tonight is twofold. First of all, to thank you, and secondly, to encourage you. Kalamazoo is earning a reputation for having a lot of good things going on. From the League of Michigan Bicyclists in Lansing, I've heard really positive things. And then a real personal story, we had a member move from the desert Southwest, and she just can't stop gushing about how lovely it is to live in Kalamazoo and how surprised and pleased she is that her teenage kids can ride their bikes to school and to work and to school and work and to the stores. Well, let me give you some thanks. Specifically, thank you for enacting and maintaining the 5-foot passing ordinance. This rule reminds drivers to give bicyclists plenty of space when we're sharing the road. I'd also like to thank you for your emphasis on making streets safe for all users, pedestrians and cyclists, as well as people who drive cars. The bike lanes help the non-motorized users feel safe and seen and welcomed. Many of us ride bicycles for exercise, but a lot of people on bikes can't afford a car or they don't have a driver's license. And safer streets is a matter of justice for them, and it expands the workforce for city businesses. Now some encouragement. Nobody likes change, and complaints that you hear in large part are simply a reaction to change. So I want to encourage you, please continue to innovate and to experiment. Now, some experiments work and some experiments don't. The planning department is trying new things, and they're doing it cheap with paint and movable bollards before they pour concrete. As a commission, you are empowering an innovation culture that will make Kalamazoo a jewel in the Midwest that others will want to copy. You're doing great work. Stick with the plan. In a few years, drivers will be used to the bike lanes, and bicyclists will be used to having safe streets to ride on in downtown. And no one, in a few years, no one will want to go back. So keep it up. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Hi, everybody. My name is Nora Hauk, and my spouse and I have been in Kalamazoo for about 10 years. For the 5 years before we had kids, we didn't have a car because we couldn't afford one at that time. Recently, we bought an electric cargo bike, and I ride an average of 8 to 10 miles every day with my kids on the back. I'm here today because I want to express my strong support for road narrowing and traffic calming throughout the city. I believe that a primary responsibility of city government is to keep residents safe. Yes, popular opinion is very important, but we know that fast streets are more dangerous for pedestrians. The pedestrian survival rate at 40 miles per hour is around 50%. I'm guessing that would be lower for my 4- and 6-year-old. Cars regularly go over 40 miles per hour on Kalamazoo city streets that are marked for much lower. It's not okay with me that pedestrians have died in this city. Lowering speeds by narrowing roads also lowers the severity of impact for drivers. It's not okay with me. Okay, so I would have had to pay $10 to get the total number of crashes in the city, but I bet you all can find that without paying $10. But at the top 5 most dangerous intersections in 2022, just those 5 intersections, there was a total of 277 crashes and 49 injuries. I was hit by a car as a child, and the driver stopped for a second and moved on. So obviously there are collisions where it's just not counted. And as I said, that's just at 5 sites. I want safer streets. My guess is that many of the people who experience collisions want safer streets. But I'm here to thank you for taking major strides to make streets slower for everybody. It is making a difference. This isn't just about adding bike lanes, though I also think those will help keep people safe. It's about creating safer means of travel for everyone, even if it means it takes a couple more minutes to get to Portage. Bike lanes are a part of a larger strategy to slow traffic, narrow roads, and keep us all safe. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good evening, commissioners. I want to start off by saying thank you all for your service to the city. My name's Nathan Browning. I live on Wellington Road over in the Winchell neighborhood. And last May, I bought an electric bike after realizing that I live on top of a hill. And if I wanted to be able to use a bike for regular transportation, I would need electric assistance. I use my bike for transportation for a lot of reasons, some of which have already been mentioned. The biggest one for me is actually probably health. Even with an electric bike, I can get some good exercise. Another reason is because riding an electric bike is extremely effective at combating climate change and has 0 exhaust emissions. My bike is also exponentially cheaper than my car to fuel and to maintain. Riding is also fun. I see much more of our city, and I have better social relationships with my neighbors because I'm out on my bike and I see them when I'm out. So I want to thank the city, staff, and this commission for the continued implementation and support of bicycle infrastructure. I would love to see more protected infrastructure similar to what was recently put in on Michigan Avenue, since safety is the #1 reason that more folks choose to drive rather than cycle, even for trips that are within 1 mile of their home. I will also add that devoting less space to cars parking and vehicles in roads means increased ability to devote space to housing, which is a very important issue in this city. Thank you again to the city staff and to this commission for enabling people to more safely ride bikes here in Kalamazoo. I'm really excited to see the city continue this trend, and I know many, many others that feel the same, and you've heard some already tonight, so thank you.
Thank you. Hello.
Hello, friends. My name is Rachel Bear. I live at 1626 Grove Street with my family, and I'll just be your exclamation point after those lovely statements by my fellow citizens. Thank you all for making the good points. I rode my bike here on the new cycle track, specifically to tell you that I rode my bike here on the new cycle track. And that's it. That's all I have to say. So it wasn't perfect. I love the cycle track, but I had to ride on the sidewalk a little bit to get here. There were some dicey intersections, so it's not complete, but we have to start somewhere. And so thank you and keep going.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Hi, Ray.
Good evening. My name is Ray Sweeney, and I'm a resident of Kalamazoo. Like Laura Lamb stated, it's an amazing agenda you have tonight, and I'm so pleased that you're doing it. In my dream world, I see families that have stable housing over the major course of their children's education. I've always been a fan of the Foundation for Excellence. I try to give back to the foundation what the tax would be on my property that they are paying, and it's been fun. I'm a volunteer with the Wednesday construction crew of Habitat for Humanity, and one of the things I value in the work we've been doing is that we've been putting together houses that can be occupied by a fairly large number of people, kids, that is to say. And their stability, they own the place when we finish. I'm intrigued with several of the proposals, the idea of supporting the renovation of properties so that they can be used in some of the housing choice voucher usages. I just hope that this develops where it can be extended looking down the future, because I'm seeing the kids that move in there and have stable housing throughout their educational experience. And then there can be shared prosperity, Kalamazoo, because that's the sort of environment that then allows them to go the next step up in living. So for all those reasons, thank you so much. Like I say, if you can make it longer than 5 years in some way, I'd love it, because I think it can be vitally important to some children out there. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you again. Is there anyone else in the chambers? Yes, Aish.
My legal name is Nehemiah Scudder, and my former friends call me Aish. I'm here to speak on behalf of the bikers. If you would run the parking places back or through the curb, several more bikes could be parked in the same area. Don't you think that would be an improvement? You could put up, payment places for the bikers too. They would probably be glad to pay a slightly lower fee, because diagonal parking is a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers who would like to take advantage of this opportunity for public comment? Seeing no one, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, has anybody called in with a public comment?
All right, we'll check. Hi, go ahead. You're live with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Hi, my name is Tina McClinton. I live at 310 Lake Street. I am from Kalamazoo and been in Kalamazoo all my life. I was calling, I don't know what the meeting is about because I have to work 2 jobs. I agree with you, Mr. Cooney. They are wasting money like crazy, just throwing money around for stupid reasons. They're going to build in my green space, which is going to create more flooding. And they can't even put the sewers to the apartments on Stockbridge because the sewers won't accept that much sewage. So they're going to run it through the woods, and they're going to put the sewers on Lake Street, which when we flood, those same sewers that they're going to run all the way over to Lake Street back up in the streets, comes up through our drains and our basements. But they say our sewers is in good shape. No, they're not. If they were in good shape, we wouldn't have a back pressure problem, and we wouldn't get the city's sewage, raw poop coming up through our basement drains and our sub pumps. So when you take this green space away and you run all the animals out, because nobody's going to do anything about the animals. No one's never did an environmental study. I know you're too cheap. Why are you going to take a green space away when you can build at the old DHS building? You can build where the old home bar is busting at the seams. Rats are crawling out of it every day. It's going to eventually bust and hit somebody's car as they go by, and what are they going to do but sue you? This sewers and these flooding has been happening since KBCC growing field took away 12 acres. Have you not learned, or are you purposely trying to flood us out? Come on, we are regular people just like you. We struggle to make ends meet. And as far as your bike lanes, you know what I see? I see panhandlers standing in them. I see people jogging down them at 6 o'clock in the morning. You can't even see them. I see people running their bikes down, running their dogs down them. I see people pushing strollers down them. This is what they use your bike lanes for. I very rarely see a bike. Yes, it's a great idea, but you very rarely see a bike. How about you fix the sewers and the storm drains on Stockbridge and on Lake and run your apartment sewage on Stockbridge where it should go and not run it to where we'll get their sewage in our house. I know, David Anderson, you're the president of LIFT, and Lisa Wilcott is right with you with Lockhart. You guys are all in one. It's time to start caring about the poor neighborhoods, and it's time to start caring about the poor residents. Do you think we'd like to be flooded and trapped for 4 days at a time? We can't even get out. If there's an emergency, we would just die, which I know you probably would hope that would happen to us. And then I would stop calling. But I'm never going to stop calling.
Hi, go ahead. You're live with the Kalamazoo City Commission.
Hello. Yes, I'm calling because houseless people continue to be chased around the city by KDPS. I heard the new plans for housing, and they just don't address the housing crisis as a crisis. Great plans, but people are houseless now, hungry now. Relying on charity is not humane, and the services are biased and classist and more traumatic. With disgruntled employees, volunteers, and all the barriers, the wait, the temporary situations only causing more harm. We should be working for systemic change, changing how access to funding, changing the laws and ordinances with houseless people in mind first, and that the unconstitutional sweep stop while housing is secured. KDPS should not be harassing, intimidating, traumatizing houseless people. Class and religion play a big role in excluding people based on economic beliefs and status. We need more systemic change and less charity and nonprofits. We need more mutual aid and decolonization. We need teachers to be paid a fair wage and have better working conditions. The FD needs to put their money where their mouth is and fund Black and brown excellence too. We've been waiting for reform and change for centuries and decades, and now the issues have become crises. Look around you. The house is burning down. Kalamazoo is in crisis mode. The school-to-prison pipeline, the environmental racism crisis, the housing crisis, the PFAS crisis, the hunger crisis, and yet we are still told to wait for reform. And we're told and we are criminalized for advocating for the houseless community. We are criminalized for speaking out. We are intimidated for advocating for human rights, basic human rights in Kalamazoo. You don't consider that when you consider your funding, that people are lacking basic human rights. We cannot wait for ordinances. We cannot wait for reform. People are hungry now. People are homeless now. There is all the crises around you. We should be acting instead of sitting there and trying to find more funding and trying to put more federal funding and putting money that's to wait to find people who will take this funding. No, we need change now. Now. It is now or it is never. The environmental crisis cannot wait anymore. We cannot continue to create development on top of at the expense of our trees, at the flooding that is being created by constantly ignoring our environment, constantly ignoring our river and how it's being used and how it's.
Hi, go ahead. You're live with the Kalamazoo City Commission tonight.
Yes, I just had a quick question. Are they doing a proclamation tonight about the Addiction Day where they turn the City Hall building purple?
We'll look into that. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was last call.
Thank you once again, Deputy City Manager Chamberlain, for handling our public comments this evening. Next on our agenda is G, the consent agenda, COO Lamb.
All right, thank you. G1, approval of a one-year contract extension with high-grade materials for miscellaneous aggregates and road gravel, Group 1, in the amount of $153,000. 2, approval of a supplemental and change order to the contract with 123.net for the addition of internet services to the existing dark fiber agreement in the amount of $219,800. 3, approval of the lease of 17 vehicles for public safety with Enterprise Fleet Management over 60 months in the amount of $628,695.50. 4, adoption of a resolution designating the polling facility locations for precincts 2, 4, and 17 to be used during the election on November 7th, 2023, and for each election thereafter. 5, adoption of a resolution recognizing the Society for History and Racial Equity as a nonprofit organization operating in the community for the purpose of obtaining a charitable gaming license. 6, adoption of a resolution approving a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot, for 530 South Rose Street. 7, approval of the termination of restated contract of sublease for the City of Kalamazoo parking system. 8, approval of a memorandum of agreement with Kalamazoo Public Schools for the Kalamazoo Department of Public Safety to provide a school resource officer services for the 23-24 school year. 9, acceptance of a brownfield redevelopment grant from the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes, and Energy for up to $350,000 in brownfield activities at 530 Rose Senior Apartments. 10, acceptance of a 2023 M-Parks statewide program funding initiative grant from Game Time for up to $100,000 in playground equipment for Emerald Park. 11, acceptance of a 2023 M-Park statewide program funding initiative grant from Game Time for up to $132,000 in playground equipment for Southside Park. 12, approval of a request from Western Michigan University to public display fireworks at Himes Field and Waldo Stadium on August 31st, 2023 during halftime of the Communiversity football game. And 13, approval and acceptance of an easement agreement with Michael A. Curvon for the continued installation and operation of water pressure reducing station 42.
Thank you, COO Lamb. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 13 and authorize the city manager to sign all documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel, supported by Commissioner Juarez. Clerk Burling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Clerk Burling, and thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now we are on to item H, the regular agenda, COO Lamb.
Adoption of a resolution establishing a citywide policy for the creation and management of a neighborhood enterprise zones.
Thank you very much, COO Lamb. I know we had a committee of the whole meeting in advance of this meeting specifically on this topic. So there are staff here. Were you planning for any presentation at this meeting?
Just one point, I'd like City Planner Christina Anderson to come up just to revisit the notion that last we left our viewers, there's going to be some additional engagement that staff was going to go through. If you could talk a little bit just about the outreach and just a little bit of the outcome of the engagement, please.
Sure, thank you. City Commissioners, Mayor Anderson. So I believe what you are asking is when we were here on July 17th, we presented the start of our draft policy to this board to start to get direction on how to move the policy forward, parameters should be included in it, et cetera. After that meeting, we reached out to our development community with the draft policy and had a number of back and forth conversations with some number of members of that development community. Staff took many comments under advisement and made changes to the document, just like we do when we are working with, say, the zoning code, and we do outreach and engagement, and we receive feedback from the community, residents, developers, et cetera. We take it, we process it, we make changes. It doesn't necessarily mean that we include every suggested element that we get. At the end of the day, staff reviews it against a broader range of criteria because as staff, we're trying to balance, you know, all the things, right? And so we work to balance community perspective, development perspective, city commission perspective, goals of the master plan, among other things. And so whenever we get feedback, we take it back, review it, we have discussions. It doesn't necessarily mean that every item ends up in the document. In this case, we did make many changes, and in the committee of the whole meeting, we did specifically talk about one of them, which was the addition of parking as one of the priorities and what that means, and Sherilyn Parsons gave some detail on that. Any other questions for me?
Thank you. Planner Anderson, questions from commissioners? All right, thank you. Appreciate that. No questions then from the commission at this time, so now is the opportunity for public comments on this item. Just as a reminder, speakers will each have 3 minutes. Please state your name, whether you live in the city. Yes.
Good evening, Joe Augustinelli, Michigan Growth Advisors. We're headquartered a block down the street at the Radisson. I am not a resident of the city. But our firm represents real estate developers all around the state of Michigan, including a fairly large percentage of the development community here in Kalamazoo. And our role is to help developers try to figure out how to make the mixed-use housing and commercial projects financially viable through the use of state and local incentive programs. So I want to commend city staff for the work that's gone into this policy. There has been a lot of back and forth. I know I'm not shy to share my opinions, so I appreciate the staff taking them under advisement. I want to say this policy is 90% of the way there. There is one specific vertical that I think we're missing, and that's specifically larger scale, predominantly market rate with an affordable component projects in the core downtown. There are projects, I think, being considered right now that are frankly don't work with this incentive policy the way it's drafted currently. I think there's a way to address that, and that I think achieves the commission's goals and allows projects to move forward, but we're not there right now. I would also share, just for your, I guess, understanding, as I'm doing deals all around the state, this would be one of the most restrictive policies for housing development in a market the size of Kalamazoo that I've worked in. And I would also add, really at the end of the day, we need more levers to be able to pull under the incentive policy in order to achieve a full 15 years of incentive. And frankly, I think as drafted, we're just going to leave some projects on the table, unfortunately. I don't think that's the intent. Like I said, we're 90% of the way there, and would hope we could spend some more time working on this policy together to get 100% of the way there. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the chambers that would like to comment on this item, H1? Seeing no one else. Commissioners, don't know if the comments brought up any questions for you, or if we just want to move to a motion that will give us an opportunity to discuss it. All right, well, the recommended motion then is an action to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So move.
Motion made by Commissioner Juarez, supported by Vice Mayor Cooney. Discussion, commissioners. Commissioner Prado.
Heard the presentation, earlier, and just really appreciate the city's work. And it's great to hear from one of the lead consultants that does work with people across the state and locally that, feels like we're 90% there. But I will admit it causes me a little bit of heartburn to hear that there will be things left on the table, because when you hear a housing crisis, you got to put all your cards out on the table. And I don't know how to weigh and balance that, because I really respect and trust city staff's perspective. But here you have somebody who is working with myriad and breadth of developers as well, saying to us in our face and in our eyes that there's going to be potentially projects left on the table that could be taken to the fullest. And, if we're 90% there, I just question if there's opportunity to kind of get to that full 100% or as close as we can. So I'd just be curious to get other folks' thoughts as well on that. Not saying necessarily interested in shutting it down tonight or postponing it, but I would be open to doing that if it seems like other people feel that that would be worth doing.
I appreciate that. Vice Mayor Cooney.
So I'm wondering if there has been any dialogue between the staff. Could you tell us about that?
Certainly. Staff has had, as Mr. Augustinelli noted, multiple conversations back and forth on different points in the proposed policy. And where I believe it is coming down to, as Mr. Augustinelli said, concerns about whether or not the affordability mix that we have in here, which is, there's a couple different paths, right? We talk about 10% of units at 80% AMI, or 20% of units at an average of AMI, that threshold is too high. And that concern about projects being able to meet that, if that is our terms in the ordinance. So, or in a policy, excuse me. We did go back and forth. We had lots of conversations. We made other changes that were suggested. Staff came down to feel that the percentages that we had at that percentage of units at that percentage of AMI felt like the right mix for staff.
Thank you. And I want to say that I support that.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. And Christina, this may be another question for you. So I know that you and Sherilyn had spoken about with the passing of this policy, there could be more projects coming down the pipeline that could use this. What has your feedback been from, if you're able to not give specific, names and businesses, what has your feedback from them been? Or if you've had these conversations with them, do they kind of like what's in it? Is that something that they feel that they could work with? Or is it just a consensus of all of their voices, or just a particular few?
I feel like much of the dialogue that staff had with the development community were developers that have frequented Kalamazoo before, particularly in downtown. We certainly had, as Mr. Augustinelli noted, quite a bit of back and forth from him, and he represents a number of developers in town.
Other discussion, commissioners? Yeah, Commissioner Decker.
Well, I guess I'm just wondering if we can talk about this now. What's that 10%? Have they studied specifically what that 10% would be, or to get us to the 100%? Maybe Mr. Augustinelli, forgive me if I say your name correctly. I guess, you've made the comment that, it's 90% there. I mean, please elaborate a little bit more on what you feel that extra 10% would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm still learning how to pronounce it too, so don't worry, Augustinelli. So at the end of the day, these deals need to be able to access the capital markets to get funded. Nothing gets built unless there's a bank that's willing to loan against the deal. And the neighborhood enterprise zone incentive costs more money than when it's tied to 80% AMI. It's you achieve, how do I explain this? The incentive is it costs more money than you are losing in rent, if that makes sense. So there's a net loss when you layer in an NEZ at 80% AMI. That still makes sense in some deal structures if you have sufficient number of market rate units and a sufficient duration of time of the incentive program. So the ultimate challenge here is I've read the policy and consulted with several of my clients that have projects that they're thinking about doing, is we in the core downtown, 80% at 20%. I did that backwards. 20% at 80% AMI on a very large scale project where you're having like high-rise construction costs, significant elevator costs, things like that. The capital stack just doesn't make sense in one where you can go out and access the capital markets. So that gets us to the 90%, I'm sorry, the 10% at 80% AMI portion of the policy. And then you would have to check some of the other boxes to get to that full 15 years under the NEZ, which would require you to do multiple housing types, which really doesn't make sense on a very small footprint in the central core downtown. You're not going to build an exchange building, for example, with a single family home on the same parcel, or a townhouse, or that just wouldn't make sense from a planning standpoint. So that option really doesn't work. And when you're doing very large scale parking or very large scale development, you're inherently going to need some parking. There is an excess of parking downtown, but there's not an infinite supply. And then complicating it further, if you're doing a mixed use development where you have like a hotel or some other use that with a significant parking demand, it's just going to be I don't think possible to achieve the parking requirement bonus year under the incentive policy. So what we had proposed was there needs to be more levers that you can pull to achieve those bonus years. As an example, do a lot of work in the city of Grand Rapids. Their NEZ policy, I think, was partially part of the model for this. They provide bonus years for things like achieving some sort of third-party green certification, like LEED certification or Green Globes, or achieving some environmental sustainability public policy goals of the city. They provide bonus years for building, hiring a certain percentage of women, veteran, and minority-owned businesses in the contracting for a project. They provide bonus years for improvements to public transit and building bus shelters and things like that that are public policy goals of the city. So there's and that's the hottest housing market in the state. So they have a little bit more flexibility to be, I would say, restrictive in their incentive policy because the deals don't need as much incentive, but they still allow you to get to that full duration. So examples like that would be what I would recommend as a way to get that, where I say we're almost there. I think that's the piece that's missing is a path to get to 15 years in the core downtown for very large projects.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Decker, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I've heard you talk regarding more so of the urban core and the developers that you work with. In your thought, how would this policy work within the urban center and the general urban area that they had highlighted? Because right now I think we're just specifically talking about the downtown, but when we're talking about implementing this policy, we're talking about it on a much bigger area. So I just hear you talking just specifically for downtown, how do you think this policy would also fit into the urban center and the general urban area that is also proposed on the map?
Sure. I would say I don't have any deal history there. I don't have any clients working on projects like that currently. So I don't have any direct feedback. It seems to me that that path is easier when you get outside of the downtown. If I read it closely, but candidly, I didn't look at that or the homestead because that's just not where my practice often is. Happy to work on deals if there are some there. Yeah, the concern is really related to sort of active client projects that I've been talking to.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make that clarification if you were speaking for, again, the whole area or just a specific area that is looking to be developed and not. Again, we need to put something into place to where we have housing that are in different areas and are not just centralized downtown. So thank you for your honesty and letting me know that because, again, when I hear you say that, I hear you say that this policy isn't good for anybody at all, but this policy could be good for people that are in those outlying areas. It's just probably for you and the people and the organizations that you work with, it's just not specific or what you guys want for what is specific in the urban core.
I think it'll be very difficult to see larger scale development happen in the urban core under this proposed policy. That's my concern.
Do you think that, you talk about providing these bonus years, you can get up to 15 years, and I think the statute, Christina, is up to 15 years, and you can't go further than that. Is that correct? And if I look here, you can get up to 15 years.
But
Hold on. Sorry. I just want to get to that page. Or maybe. Just a minute. I'm going to pull that policy back up.
I mean, that is the case, that 15 years is
Stay there?
an option in there. Well, maybe before going much
I think I can be
further
done.
on this,
I've
are you all
heard.
set?
Thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Planner Anderson, is there anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Anderson. If you don't mind, I did want to clarify one of the points that Mr. Agostinelli made regarding the parking. So the parking very specifically relates to the residential units that are being constructed and really thinks about this for downtown. As he accurately noted, there are quite a bit of excess parking spaces right now in downtown. So we have the opportunity to think about how to use those spaces for some of these new projects. But what we're specifically talking about is a reduction for the residential units, not additional components, such as a hotel or commercial that may be included with this project. This specifically talks about spaces, a trade-off of spaces as it relates to the residential uses. And I just wanted to provide clarity on that item.
Thank you. Other discussion, Commission? Commissioner Prado?
I was just going to say that it was very helpful to hear both comments from both individuals because I think both have strong experience and perspectives of what they're bringing to that. I think what we have to ask ourselves is that one of the things that we're trying to achieve as a community is a greater balance and diversification of various housing percentages as it relates to low income or under 80% AMI. And there is potential with that policy making that we might inhibit or slow or prevent housing from happening. But we have to ask ourselves as policymakers whether that's worth it, and what we want to achieve for our community, and hope that by making those changes that it lifts the tide so that they come to a point where like Grand Rapids and people are a hot market. I think the other thing is that I think there are some pretty valuable components there about maybe things we should consider. Maybe we could add like those ideas about making infrastructure improvements to the sites, like for public transportation, or making the buildings more LEED certified or green so that it aligns with our sustainability plan. So I just think that there's things to evaluate with that, but it was very helpful to hear those perspectives.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Commissioner Prado, but at the end of the day, we have a crisis, right? And what kind of housing that we need in this community to address that crisis are different various types of housing. And so I would hope that developers would see that and would come to the table with open minds and open hearts to say, how can we help this community address this crisis? Not just for, at market rate type of rental units, but, family units and things of that nature, and the different types of units we need. And so I think that's really important to put on the table to allow, the city, Christina and her team and planning and doing this work and coming with that strategic solution, that collective impact we talk about, but it's a give and take at the same time. And I believe the work that you guys are doing, Christina, in developing this policy is a first step, and it's not the mountain we're going to choose to die on. It's going to be, hopefully it's going to, we'll learn from it and grow from it and understand from it even more, and then we'll move accordingly. And so I think if developers are willing to address this crisis with us, we'll have a better outcome when it comes to how things are done. So, thank you.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you. I'll be quick, Mayor. And I just want to point out to you, thank you, Commissioner Prado and Commissioner Juarez, for that. And Mayor, you had asked, our team, if they ever saw any amendments possibly going forward. Things are amended every day. Things are amended all the time. If something needs to be amended, we would be the body to do that. If you see that something's not working, I just want us to keep that in our minds too, is that things can be amended.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any more discussion? Commissioner Hess.
At our retreat, at our commission retreat, we did talk about creating affordable housing. And I believe that the policy as it sits now does address that. I appreciate your bringing up, Commissioner Decker, that it can be amended. Should someone come to the table with sustainability, with an amazing sustainability building. So one of our priorities is affordable housing, and with the policy as it is, it will help us do more.
Other discussion? Commissioner Prado.
I also think the challenge for us is that, maintaining our core and saying that we want to make sure that a policy priority is diversified housing. What other creative solutions and incentives can we provide as a community that might be out there? Or, maybe we can provide other gap funding opportunities if people commit to that level of housing type diversification. So I think it's also an opportunity for us to put on our creative cap and try to figure out ways that we can also try to fill those gaps and remove barriers. So,
thank you, Commissioner Prado. Any other? Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that, Commissioner Prado, because having a few meetings myself, we talked about things, as you say, helping developers, bridge that gap. I think maybe something we should, possibly take a look into, in the next coming months is how do we create a community land trust? I think that could be something that would be beneficial here, and that's going to help with that gap. And Joe, I like your ideas of what you're seeing they're doing in Grand Rapids. Hey, if you want to do this, build me a bus port that's got a green space on top of it that allows bees to grow and for it to flourish our neighborhoods, or flowers or something like that. Improvements again to the public transportation. We just received or accepted the $750,000 grant to do more studies. And, if these studies are to work in certain areas, if these studies come back certain things, that could be something, hey, we did this particular area needs this thing here. So I do like those ideas. Those are great ideas. So I just want to let you know that, thank you for that.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. I would like to remind us that this is just one tool in our toolkit. And not every tool is meant to handle every job. So when I think of an NEZ zone and I think about the possibilities, I do not see any development happening in the core where the people who we should be prioritizing, and that's our low and no income residents of Kalamazoo, I don't see those individuals being able to even access some of the apartments downtown. So I want to remind us that this is one tool in the toolkit. We learned that. And this is a good place to start.
Thank you, Commissioner Hoffman. Anyone else? All right, Clerk Barlin, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next item on the regular agenda, COO Lamb.
Adoption of a resolution establishing a neighborhood enterprise zone between Eleanor, Rose, Water, and Park Streets.
And is there a staff presentation on this item?
There is
No?
not, but we do have staff available for questions if there are any.
Thank you so much. Questions for staff on this particular item to get started here? Commissioner Juarez.
May I ask who requested, what organization requested this?
Planner Anderson.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. At the Committee of the Whole back on July 17th, we also discussed that evening, excuse me, not at Committee of the Whole, at the business meeting, we had a public hearing on the creation of this NEZ, and representatives of Plaza Corp spoke to this board at that meeting about the project that is the impetus, that is what had pushed forward the creation of this district. And that project is at the corner of Water and Rose. And so in the front, there's the historic building. There's a lower rise, more modern building towards the west in the back. And the project that they talked about tonight, and I will also say that there are representatives here who I'm certain will want to speak to this item during public comment, are planning a project of both new units, because they're going to add a couple of stories, so that's the new part of it, and then rehab the buildings to add residential units. So that project at that corner is the catalyst for the creation of the district.
Okay, and you, I think earlier in your guys' presentation, you said these individuals could apply for that zoning to happen where nonprofits, organizations.
Sure. So that the supporting organization that you're referring to is part of the Homestead NEZ. This one that we are creating here would allow for either new or rehabilitated units. So that requirement for supporting organization is not there because you generally we're dealing with larger development projects that don't necessarily need that handholder like you might for residents who are seeking a tax benefit for their own personal service. So this is a new or rehabilitated NEZ. So it would allow either all new construction, all rehab, or a combination of both, which again is what the Ironworks project is bringing to the table.
Other questions for?
Questions?
Yeah, Commissioner Hess.
Planner Anderson, I'm wondering if you feel that the policy that we just passed would affect this one moving forward.
So when this project, so again, tonight is just creating the district, the NEZ boundaries. The next step is for the applicant to, or for the developer to come forward to request a certificate. Now, the policy that we just passed allows projects of any type to get 9 years because they're in the NEZ. There's pass for 12 years and pass for 15 years. And so there are opportunities for different projects to seek those numbers of years of the tax abatement.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. With the approval of this, today, if we approve it, what would be the highest time that they could get? Would it be the 15 years for the project that they're looking to do?
Correct. Each location, when you start to meet some of the criteria that's laid out, have passed for 12 years or 15 years. If you want to do a project that doesn't meet any of the criteria that we have laid out in that path, then you can go for one that's 9 years as a minimum. And that's something similar to what Grand Rapids had set up in theirs. You know, you can follow the criteria. We have different ones to choose from. It will get you 12 or 15. If you would prefer to take a different path, there's the opportunity for 9.
Thank you. You know, when you think about, you know, what, if we pass this and if they choose to move forward, you know, I hope they're, you know, still considering what this is going to do. It's going to promote the creation of new residential areas, units. We're going to be utilizing a vacant property or one that's not being used to its potential. We're going to be doing development in areas where housing is needed. And again, we just said that housing is needed everywhere. It's going to develop an existing infrastructure and the amenities that exist. And I think the most important one is going to advance the city's vision for attainable housing, economic development, mixed income development, housing type diversity, and utilization of public transit and mobility-focused initiatives and infill, which, you know, we've been doing a lot of that already when you talk again about the streets that we're doing and making it walkable. So I'm hoping that this will have a positive outcome this evening, and I'm hoping that the organization will still feel fit and the developers will still feel fit to move forward with this, because I think it is a great thing, and I think that what they're looking to do with that building is going to be beautiful.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions for Planner Anderson? Commissioner Hoffman.
Thank you. I don't even know if this is a question for you, but I just want to put it out there because we know that we have residents of our city and our county that are sleeping outside. And when developers come to the city and they're doing primarily market rate and workforce housing now, have you had any discussions about their ability to get creative? I don't want to mess up Mr. G's last name, G, or so I'm just.
Agostinelli.
Yeah, okay. But what would it look like? Would your group, the people that you represent, be willing to have a conversation around setting aside a certain amount of units within the development, whereby those individuals who have housing choice vouchers would be able to apply and also live? You know, we talk about affordable housing. There are many ways to get to your bottom line and keep you in the black and also serve people with very creative ways. So I'm just wondering, are those conversations starting? Have they started? Like, what can we do? I know we can't mandate right now that we do dedicated, very affordable housing in new developments. We can't do it yet. But those conversations, they are ways that the developer can still earn money, make the money, and we still serve a population of people who desperately need housing and also provide support services with an organization willing to do the work alongside of them. So.
Sure. So I mean, I think the best way to answer that would be that, you know, Sherilyn Parsons and her housing team, you know, do have lots of conversations with developers that come forward and try to strategize on different ways to move projects forward, to meet city's goals. I think one of the things we definitely have discussed tonight is that there's always that push-pull and trying to figure out how each project can move us forward. But I think, as you said and said well, not one tool, not each project is going to hit everything, right? And so how do we take each project, have those discussions, and then figure out, you know, what is working best that meets our needs where the developer can still make their project pencil, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't pencil, it's not going to move forward unless we can provide some additional incentives. And so yes, we do have those conversations, but I think it's important to note that each project is going to be different, and we'll bring different things to the table, and we need that, right? Housing strategy is yes and, right, always.
Commissioner Decker.
And I just want to say and reiterate, I believe that looking really into a community land trust is going to be a way for us to fill that gap.
Thank you. Any other questions for Planner Anderson at this time? Yes, Commissioner Prater.
I was just curious, based on like the development plans as they sit, do we have a sense about how many years they would be able to anticipate as it stands now?
Sure. I don't know what their unit mix is in terms of rents. I do know that they are not adding any new parking to on site. There's parking in an adjacent ramp that they'll be utilizing, so I know that we have that. That will be part of the equation that they bring to the table.
However, that particular project, we're just creating the zone by this action.
Correct. They will then come forward at a future date for their certificate, which comes back to this body.
Other questions at this point? Okay, Commissioners. Now is an opportunity for public comments on this item. You'll have 3 minutes. Please come forward and state your name and whether you live in the city.
My legal name is Nehemiah Scudder, and my friends often call me Aish, which is fire in Hebrew. You think you're kidding yourself by saying this is low-income housing. When I sit there and say, look for housing, she found one advertisement in the Kalamazoo Gazette tucked away on site almost for $350 a month. Well, when she went there and talked it over, they said, no, that's $500 a month. That is not low-income housing. However, I gave her enough money to pay the $500, and then she said, well, we have sewage removal and water supply for another $150. Well, it wasn't fair. They had advertised in the Gazette for $350, and now it's up to $650. Somebody's trying to cheat on us project, it seems to me. It was originally hopefully designed for low-income housing. $650 a month is not low-income housing, and that is apparently the best they can do, if even that. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Tina. I came down here to finish my conversation. Thank you, Cooney, for speaking up at the last meeting about how you guys are wasting so much money. You know, when we flood your sewers back up in our streets and
this isn't a particular item. This isn't public comments.
I'm finishing my conversation.
Okay.
Affordable housing, yes, I'm all for it. I'm all for it, but not in a floodplain. You guys have so many other places. Why is there no affordable housing downtown? Why is there none in that new building you just built on the corner of Park and Cedar Street? Why is there no affordable at all downtown? Why are you trying to destroy us? Everybody, there is a meeting September 7th. A lot of people did not get the note because we know how the communication is around here. It's September 7th at 7 o'clock. Here, they're talking about the rezoning. I just wanted to make sure everybody knows about that, because the city does not communicate. If you are not a homeowner, you do not get a letter. You do not get a postcard. If you are a renter, you get nothing. You're Section 8, you get nothing. You know nothing about the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello again, Joe Augustinelli, Michigan Growth Advisors. We represent Plaza Corp on this project. Just encouraging the commission to approve this action tonight. It's a really exciting project. I think it does work within the new incentive policy. that you just adopted. So all my earlier comments were not directed at this project, just to be clear. What's unique about this deal is it's an existing building, which costs a lot less to construct than a high-rise, which is really what we were talking about before. But we'd be happy to answer any questions, and there are representatives of the development team here as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to adopt the resolution. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hess,
Support.
supported by Commissioner Decker. Discussion. Commissioner Praedel.
I think at the expense of not, backing down from staying true to our policy of really wanting to create diversified housing, that's not to say that we shouldn't be incredibly gracious to people who want to invest in our downtown, invest in development, create more housing, because we heard from Sherilyn earlier today as well that, the reality of like how housing systems work is they're very complex. It's like trying to resolve homelessness with one quick strategy. It's not possible. And housing is the same way. And the reality is that if you don't address all the diversified different segments of housing, you run into scenarios where people who are of higher income start eating into the housing that is affordable for people who have lower income housing. So, we have to be thoughtful about the whole ecosystem, and we got to keep that in mind as well as we're doing this work, but also keep our eye on the prize that we want to stay focused on that diversified, lower income housing opportunities in our community as well. So, just wanted to make sure to thank folks for taking risks and innovating. I was at a community event, and I won't name the other municipal leader that I was sitting there with, but they were kind of like gloating about some recent projects that they had come up, but they were very much like greenfield projects, where you're going in and wiping out land or the remaining land, and it's exciting when we're in the urban core like we are, that we can take existing buildings and reimagine new uses for them, and not have to tear something down, or not have to tear down a forest to make something work. And so it is exciting when you see a project like this where it's taking a beautiful old asset and turning it into something that's reimagined and making our urban core an amazing place. So I just didn't want to lose that in the fact of making sure to thank folks for their investment in our community.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel. Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. And I do want to reiterate or, reaffirm that, Commissioner Praedel, because, when we talk about, the state of our, what is it that you say, Commissioner Hoffman? Look at the state of your city by the healthier city by the lowest. Yes. Individuals that earn the least. And when I think about things and I think about economic development, again, I kind of said this in the committee of the whole or a little bit earlier, but, we want our residents' incomes to increase, right? And how can we make that happen if we as a city are not putting things into place that, again, wants a business to come and set up shop here, right? We want a business to come and create something and have their employees making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, right? Because when you do that, then everybody within the community benefits, right? And again, creating these types of homes, the workforce placement, we're doing that because now we may have a business that's been looking at us and kind of been on the cusp for the last 2 or 3 years, like, oh, okay, now my people have somewhere where they can come and live that they're going to want to live in, and they're going to come and put those funds, into our city, which is just going to make it better for everyone. And then again, kind of like you said, we're going to open up some of those homes that can be rehabilitated by KNHS and by Habitat for Humanity, and that can be shelters for individuals that need them. It's just we don't have it right now, so we are getting creative and finding different ways to make different places for everyone to stay. And I remember I went to a conference one time, and I don't know who I said this with. I think maybe it was you, Laura. It was the veterans housing community, but it was all tiny homes, right? And I'm like, I want that. We could do something like that, and we're working on certain things like that, But again, as I said, going back and really reviewing all of our policies and procedures when it comes to housing what barriers are there that we can eliminate to make housing easier? So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Any other discussion on this item? Go ahead, Commissioner Pradel.
You know, I think from the presentation at the COW meeting too, that the kind of irony of the city of Kalamazoo and being the greatest need for our residents to find, you know, affordable level housing is that in some ways we're vastly more expensive to create that. We've had greater barriers to make that happen. So it goes back to, like, you know, for city staff to hear, like, this is all the more reason why we got to get that creative cap on and really be innovative and dream up ways that we can be more competitive and really draw from other communities and maybe find ways to provide additional incentives and gap funding to support projects like that. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioners, the motion passes. Next item on the regular agenda is item H4, correct?
Yes. Approval of a housing development loan for Zion Place 4 Limited Dividend Housing Association Limited Partnership in the amount of $1 million for gap financing to support construction of affordable housing units for the Legacy Senior Housing Development Project at 730 North Burdick Street.
Thank you, COO Lamb. Is there a staff presentation on this item?
There is not, but we have staff present here if you have any questions.
Thank you so much. Commissioners, any questions for staff on item H4 about the Zion Place 4 LDHA in the amount of $1 million?
Mayor, I know that
Commissioner Hess.
I know that we've received information in our packets about the project, but I wonder for the public if someone could come forward and talk a little bit about that project, please.
Sure, I'll have Sherilyn Parsons, our Housing Development Supervisor, come forward to provide some details. Thank you.
I see Mr. Bogan is here as well, correct? Yes.
Yes, so I wanted to introduce to you, thank you for the question. I wanted to introduce to you Jamari Bogan. He is working with the developer on this project, and I could think of no one better to answer your questions regarding this development.
Welcome, Mr. Bogan. Nice to have you here.
Good evening, Mayor Anderson, commissioners, and city staff. My name, as you said, is Jamari Bogan. Today I'm representing Mount Zion Baptist Church and Edison Community Partners. Together we have received low-income tax credits for a 70-unit senior housing project in Kalamazoo's North Side community. The site address is 730 North Burdick and adjacent to the Ecumenical Senior Center. The project has a huge emphasis on two things: equity and sustainability. Equity is shown in our ownership structure, and sustainability is in our construction. Our northern building will be certified a passive house, which is the greenest construction certification for multifamily development. And the building is on pace for net zero. Our southern building will be certified to enterprise green communities, and rents will range from 20% to 80% of AMI, and that includes utilities. Our request today in front of you is to close our existing financial gap, and our goal is to break ground in 2024. Thank you guys, as always, for your partnership and continued belief in what we're doing here in the community. If you have any questions, I am here to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Questions from Commissioner? Commissioner Hess? And then Commissioner Pradel.
But I have to say, I was part of a group that toured the development you're doing on Frank Street, and the work that you and your development company and that the collaboration that you are doing with other developers is simply amazing. The fact that you're working on this and making it sustainable just warms my heart. And the seniors that are going to be served by this development are just very, very lucky. So I appreciate you and the work you're doing in Kalamazoo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Commissioner Pradel.
Hey, Jamari, good to see you. I was just curious if you could share, you often hear public-private partnerships and whatnot, but unique and special about this is that it also includes the faith-based community in the mix as well, and just kind of sharing some of the history, like how did that come to be? Like how did it become kind of a three-part strategy with, I guess, a segment you typically don't hear when it comes to development, the faith-based community?
Yes, so one of our team members, Jason Muniz, was looking for an opportunity doing an awesome project in the Northside community. And Mount Zion Baptist Church had purchased land over time adjacent to their church. And it just was an instant marriage when Jason met Kathy Wortham at the church. And from there, over 2 years ago now, we've been on a journey to bring this project to fruition. So it's been very unique, though, but very exciting. They're a great community partner, tremendous church with tremendous experience of serving the community. And they help bring a lot of insight to us on how to do community engagement and make the resident experience elite. So we love Mount Zion, and we hope we can do some more projects with them in the near future.
Commissioner Juarez.
You said the two, Mount Zion, and what was the other group?
Our Edison Community Partners.
Okay, cool. Is it going to be like the Washington Square senior apartments? Is it going to be similar to that?
I'm not sure about that project.
Okay.
But it's going to be 70 units. We have 66 one-bedrooms and 4 two-bedroom apartments. So.
Awesome.
It's not going to be 15 stories tall like that one in Washington Square.
No, these are 3 stories, this one, yeah.
Other questions for developer Bogan here? All right, thank you, sir. Appreciate you
guys.
being here,
Thank
staying with us through this meeting to this point. Thank you. Seeing that there are no more questions for staff, now is the opportunity for anyone here in the audience who'd like to comment on this particular item. Please come forward, state your name and whether you live in the city. You'll have 3 minutes. Seeing no one, Commissioners, the recommended action is a motion to approve the loan agreement. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman, supported by Commissioner Juarez. Discussion. Commissioner Praedel.
This is just awesome. I mean, you look at here tonight, I mean, so just between the Burdick and the Rose development project, we're talking 134 units just for seniors in our community that are going to come online in the next couple of years. So again, this is walking the walk. This is doing the work in terms of housing and creating opportunities. I also just wanted to take a moment to give a shout out to Jamari. I too had a chance to tour the development property going on Frank Street, which is incredible. But I just wanted to make sure to give a shout out to you that I think is unique and really special. That something I heard you say when you were giving the tour. He made the conscious decision that as a person who was going to develop on our north side, that he was going to make this development in this property so that his residents and his offices are in his property, because he wants to be a part of the community he's helping to create. And I think that's just incredible, and it speaks a lot. And I really do think like you really represent truly some of the best of the minds and the work that's being done in this community in terms of being creative, collaborative, innovative, and then walking the walk. So thank you, Jamari, for all your work.
Thank you, Commissioner Praedel.
Yeah, I just
Commissioner
want
Juarez,
to.
yes.
I just want to thank you also. I think maybe even the other gentleman that was here representing other developers could take that kind of approach, to be invested in the community, not just about making money, but providing something for the community that's in need. So thank you so much.
Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thank you also for that, everyone that's been here within the development, because when you think about it, these new senior living homes is going to allow a senior to stay within the city of Kalamazoo, still keep their independence, still be around their family and everyone that they know, while opening up their home that they have lived in for 50, 60 years and raised their children in and have seen them off and get married and whatnot, to then open that up to a new family to start making memories. So I think that's great.
All right, appreciate that. We're still in discussion time, and so is there anyone else who has any points you want to make? So I would just like to add something here. We went through a discussion on really what is a set of very, very complicated topics when we went through our committee of the whole meeting and talked about a quick run through of all the various tools and how you can accomplish creating affordable housing. And then we talked about one of those tools, which is creating the neighborhood enterprise zones. But if you remember, another one that was referenced in that presentation was low-income housing tax credits. Well, two big projects that you referenced this evening, Commissioner Praedel, relating, 134 units, those are both low-income housing tax credit projects. And in essence, for the most part, you heard the other developer talking about having to borrow money from a bank for a project. The low-income housing tax credit, which is a federal program which is highly competitive, oftentimes projects apply multiple times before they get these tax credits. But what that tax credit does is seek to replace the majority of the borrowing that has to occur to build something. I'm sure this project here is in excess of $15 million project, I'm guessing. But the tax credit doesn't fund the whole piece of it. That's why we're talking about some gap financing here to help this project get to the line. I don't care whether it's an affordable housing project or it's a redevelopment project. There is no way you can do it without the funding, either from the bank or from tax credits or somewhere or another. And this is just on the development side. So one of the benefits that you can get for so you're looking for deeply affordable housing on the development side, is there's almost no way to do it at this point without having it be a project that is assisted with tax credits. So tonight we've had multiple discussions about opportunities, and once again, Commissioner Decker, you talked about the fact we need housing across the board, and we're talking about doing that across the board work and supporting with this investment. And something else that we don't talk about very much, we pass a payment in lieu of taxes pilot, which we did on our consent agenda tonight for another senior project that is here on South Rose. So we didn't even talk about it on the consent agenda, it just passes. But the fact of the matter is that we give up property taxes. We are making every year a big investment in that property because we are telling that developer you do not need to pay ad valorem property taxes. And if you look at the life of these affordable housing developments, that ends up being an investment that gets into the millions as well. So it's something that we have, it's become almost just a habit. We walk through it, but I just think we need to recognize that. There is a commitment there, and that does mean that we're still plowing the streets. We're still providing fire, and public safety, and all those sorts of things that are supported by ad valorem taxes. And we're saying, we'll cover you in this space. So, certainly a pilot provides something, but that is a commitment that comes from the city of Kalamazoo, which I just don't want us to take that lightly. Clerk Borland, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Praedel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cooney.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hess.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Yes.
Commissioner Juarez.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next are reports and legislation. COO Lamb.
Thank you. I do want to take a moment just to share some highlights from two of our departments. Although I love these departments, they're not my favorite. We're going to start to rotate in a couple of updates each time. So for tonight, I want to start off by talking about Parks and Recreation. As summer's coming to a close, we have a lot of happy campers. We have had a Parks and Rec team working all summer to make sure that our youth and our families have a positive experience. We really want to thank them for their efforts. We've heard a lot of testimonies from parents about what it means, both for their child's development, but also ease of their lives, being able to go to work, being able to think about other things, knowing that their children are being cared for. So really want to do a shout out for All Things Possible, for our Super Rec program, and all the work of the Parks and Rec team for making that happen. Also, a special shout out for the office assistant for Parks and Rec, Dee Barrett has really been called out as going above and beyond. As I understand it, summer is a very busy time, and she seems to be completely able to help customers, help them out, help them sign on, help them figure out the wait list, just navigate all of the challenges that come to our youth's way, and really help the whole team, being there to support the coordinators, being there to support the staff. So really want to thank Dee for all of her efforts and know that she's made a big impact on her team and on our youth of our community. Going to move over to human resources. We've had some staff come on board at some point. We hope you all have a chance to meet Monique Williams as our HR specialist in talent acquisition. She joins us from the Kalamazoo State Hospital. And then Jessica Partello, our training and professional development specialist, is coming to us from Greenleaf Hospitality. So both of these new staff have been very instrumental helping taking our HR department to the next level. In terms of kind of administration for HR, we have a new training platform that we're rolling out, trying to increase access to our team to be able to have training that they need. And they're also, HR is undertaking a really comprehensive review of HR policies and procedures. Thought you might like that, Commissioner Decker. They're taking cues, they're listening, kind of going bit by bit to see what policies might need to be revised, and working very closely with our DEI director to understand how policies can better impact and reflect our values. Our clinic, we continue to see a lot of good participation. We get to see more numbers coming in. Lastly, I want to share that we have our Employee Appreciation and Benefits Fair coming up on September 15th. I want to note it's going to be 2 to 4:30, and that we are planning on closing city offices to the public so that we have a greater opportunity for more of our staff to enjoy themselves and be appreciated. We're going to be sure to notify the public. We'll let people know, but we think it's really important to make sure that as many people as possible can come out and be appreciated. And lastly, we have a blood drive coming up August 24th in the community room from 9 to 1:30. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, CO Lamb. I appreciate it. Commissioners, now we are at the time we have an opportunity for commissioner comments. Is there anyone who would like to make some comments this evening? Oh, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. Mine will be very, very quick. I just want to say, thank you to our team within the city. Thank you to my colleagues up here. We did a lot of good work today, and I'll reiterate, we had great conversation. Conversation is how you get things out and how you talk about things and how you come to a consensus of what you want to do going forward. I also want to say thank you especially for allowing as many employees as we can to participate in Employee Appreciation Day. How can you really appreciate someone if you don't give them the opportunity to come and show how much you appreciate them? So thank you, HR. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate that. There's one other thing I wanted to talk about. It was something that we actually passed on the consent agenda. And I know this is, I've had some calls about it, and I know I've sent a few emails about it, or I think maybe just one. And it's number 2, and it's about, the change order when it comes to allowing a company called 123.net to come in and to do things as it relates to fiber. I'm pretty sure a lot of our residents, I'm included, my parents are included, people that I know have had their yards defaced because of this coming in. And, I know it's an issue. I've had some calls and, again, emails about it, and I know our team in the city manager's office is taking a look at our Metro Act and how that kind of works within the city and what we are able to do when we say, how far is that easement? How far can you go? And also, come pick up your old, I don't know what you call those, cable boxes that are just kind of hanging there within our community. So I definitely wanted to kind of speak on that because I have a feeling that we just did a change order. So I have a feeling, some more yards might get a little messed up. So I just kind of wanted to point that out. I'm excited about the NEZ zones. I think this is going to do great for our city. I want to say that on August 28th is the first day of school. So please be mindful as you're driving to work on that Monday morning. There's going to be a lot of little ones and parents that could be utilizing those bike lanes that we put into place to ride to school. Buses, there's going to be a lot more buses that are out and about. I just want everyone to be aware and kind of pay just a little bit more attention come what should be every day, but especially on the day where we're going to have thousands of kids waiting at bus stops, excited, going to school to learn, and we want to make sure that they get there safely. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Commissioner Juarez.
Yes, I just wanted to lift up our Rally Against Gun Violence events. We are having our last one this Friday from 3 to 6 at Urban Alliance on the corner of Stockbridge and Mills. You know, this is just, I want to address the community in this because I think super important for the community to show up and to support these efforts, right? I always tell people, you know, the government, police departments aren't going to fix gun violence. They're a portion of it. They're part of the solution, but we as a community need to do better, right? It's that standing up and making a call to action, right? And so, you know, this is our last one for the summer, and just we need the community's support and help in this. And so this Friday at Urban Alliance from 3 to 6 is going to be the rally. You know, a couple other shout outs to like Alejandro Rodriguez at Urban Alliance and doing the life camps. Really supporting him and, you know, just educating our youth, right? And you know, the marches, they had a march, they had about 3 of them, and they're just really unique to pass that that information and that wisdom to the next generation, right? And so just a quick shout out to him. Quick shout out to Yafencio Harris and his buddy Nutty. They did the Keep the Faith and Interfaith, which was a great turnout. It was such an awesome event and an awesome time to be part of, you know, and just see the community respond to that. It was just very, very exciting. At the same time, the work continues and, you know, we're keeping our hands to the plow. Quick shout out to Adrian at Hispanic American Council and the Latinx Festival. I myself didn't get to attend it, had some stuff going on, and so just heard great things about it, especially from the Hispanic community, just hearing like the difference between it being at Bronson Park and then it being at Arcadia, and just the access of vendors and the talent shows and the you know, the performances. It just was, overall, it was a great response from the community, and they enjoyed it, they loved it, and they hope it just becomes that much more better every year. And so just a shout out to Adrian and his team and hosting that and bringing that back. And so just super excited about the season we're going into, right? The fall season's coming up. School is coming up, right? I'm going to be so happy that my kids are going to be back at school. Football season's coming up, right? We got Michigan football. I'm not going to talk about Michigan State or nothing, but the Detroit Lions. I just want to give a shout out to Detroit Lions. Chief Boyson, they won one of their preseason games, but they look like they got a lot of good talent this year. Okay, so don't miss out on watching the Detroit Lions.
Thank you, Commissioner Juarez. Other comments from other commissioners? None over on this side. Commissioner?
I'll go.
Yes, okay.
So just a few things. While you're speaking of Parks and Rec, COO Lamb, the event on Friday that Parks and Rec championed for the Youth Talent Show was fantastic. I don't know if you had a chance to see it or be there, but it gave me hope. It gave me optimism for the future. That these young people that are getting up there and singing and playing and dancing and performing and got outside of themselves and exhibited a courage that some of us may not even choose to do. I mean, these kids were amazing. And shout out to Parks and Rec for putting that together. It was really a wonderful day of hope and optimism. And frankly, Commission has had a chance to read some of the letters from some of the parents for the summer, and it moved my heart. So thank you to those parents. and to Parks and Rec for putting on such shows. Secondly, thank you, Ray Sweeney, for coming and speaking and talking about the Foundation for Excellence. You know, when you get your tax bill, you may notice that there's an amount on your tax bill that this is what your relief is from the Foundation for Excellence. You may also notice that you can donate some of that back. And so the Foundation for Excellence does accept contributions, and either the full amount of your relief or not. But the amount on mine was amazing, and I'm just continually grateful for the Foundation for Excellence and what they're doing in this community. Lastly, August 28th, while it is the first day of school, it's a half day, and while education equals justice, there will be an event at Martin Luther King Park on Rose Street, celebrating or commemorating the 60th anniversary of the I Have a Dream speech by Martin Luther King. We will have a program in his shadow, that beautiful statue that's at MLK Park, and then vendors and people around that we can see what maybe has happened since that speech that day. And we can also do a call to action to say, what can we do from here on to create greater justice, equality, and freedom, which were the themes of that speech. So please join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Hess. Commissioner Pradel.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have 4 items I wanted to share tonight. So the first one is just I'm over the moon excited about, just the housing progress, even if it's just, the work here tonight. I mean, just to put into perspective, we've got $350,000 to provide brownfield support to get a project up and running from the foundation up. We have $1 million gap funding for a project to provide gap investment into senior housing development on Burdick. We got an NEC policy to provide our vision, basically, of creating more diversified income housing, but also to give more clear directive to people looking to develop here in our community. And we created an NEZ zone to help spur development. And it's exciting to see all that come together. It's a manifestation, I think, of really the community's vision that they told us that housing was a huge priority. And here we see that priority in action. So thank you to city staff and community for continuing to push that forward. I wanted to take a second to recognize the Bridging Opportunities Program. Had a chance to attend the most recent graduation for Bridging Opportunities. I am telling you, if you get a chance, just to talk to one of the kiddos or somebody involved with that program. I mean, we're only talking about 8 kids here, but these 8 kids had, in some cases, upwards of like 6 dozen calls into public safety over the course of 1 year before they're in the program, right? I mean, significant needs these kids have to have people wrapped around them and supporting them. And, this is a program that we invest in. This is like a $150,000 program. And so when you look at that, most people are probably like, really, $150,000 on 8 kids? I will tell you, 110% worth every penny of those dollars. These 8 kids go through a program where they have an opportunity to provide mentorship to younger kids at the Boys and Girls Club. They have an opportunity to go and visit and get paid to visit sites around our community to see how things from hospitality works behind the scenes at the Radisson to actually getting to talk on the mic at Wings Stadium. I mean, and you could just see how these kids light up. And I think the most inspiring thing to sit and watch the kids is that at this event, they're sitting at a table with, the adults in their life. And you could tell that, as for a lot of these parents, just how proud they were in their kids, and maybe for the first time in a long time to see them graduate from this program. And you heard each of the kids get up and they speak about it, and they talk about like what they feel like the program provided them. And the number one reoccurring word I kept hearing with people is belief. That people believe in me. There's people wrapped around and showing belief that I can be something and do something with my life. And the program for the first time ever has research and numbers to back behind it of what a great investment this is, besides just the stories and the personal impact, to show that the calls of public safety for these kids decreases significantly after this program investment. So it's working. And I hope we can find any opportunity we can to continue to support it, maybe continue to support it in more than just the one season per year that it takes place. I'm just so excited about that program. And I thank Chief and your team for all your investment in that program and time. The courts are involved. Parole, it's incredible to see the wraparound with that. Third thing I just wanted to mention too, you saw in the consent agenda, we approved, it was accepting a grant for $132,000 for Southside Park. But you notice a little notation in there, and I don't know if you caught it, but it said that an anonymous donor donated $200,000 in addition to that for that park. And whoever that donor is, thank you. That's an incredible park. It's going to be right across from our new Station 2. And there are just so many kids that use that park in that community. And so I'm really excited to see that we're going to see that level of hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment going in. And the current playground equipment that's there, it was actually recycled. So when it went in there, it was already old. And so that's great. And then we also invested $100,000 in Emerald Park, which does not have playground equipment, which will now have playground equipment. And then lastly, the fourth item, I just wanted to make sure to thank COO Lamb. Whenever you've been up here, you've done a great job of utilizing that city manager report time. And it's always so great to hear those updates. I really appreciate those. You know, you and your team manage a city of 78,000 plus people, and there's always something exciting or good to share. And there's always great team members that are worth celebrating. And I just would love to continue to see that. I've shared that with Jim, and I know Jim's trying to make an effort to do that as well, but I just wanted to thank you for doing that.
No. Thank you, Commissioner Prado. I think one last thing maybe I'd like to get a chance to highlight this evening, and you just see the tip of it here when people speak about events that have occurred just this last weekend or within the last week or two. And, you know, it is certainly a time, you know, in this country and maybe the way that we look at ourselves, it is often the negative thing. I guess that's just human nature, right? We're going to hear about sad events, unfortunate events, angry events. That's what we're going to see in the press. That's what we're going to see on social media. But just as a reminder, off this podium in the community, this community is just a living, breathing organism of people who are doing all kinds of great things all the time. Whether it's on their block, whether it's organizing large events, these are not necessarily these are not activities that are directed by the city or funded by the city. It's just what people do because they care about other people where they live. And I just want us to keep remembering that and focusing on that and highlighting that a real functioning community is one that is full of people that are continually trying to determine how can I be part of helping this be a positive place for people to live. So I appreciate the heck out of that. I love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.